have my signature guitar, which was made by Charvel. We spent about 2 years designing that, so it basically does everything that I need a guitar to do. Amp-wise, I use a 30-watt amp designed by a UK company called Victory, and we kind of worked on that together, but my only input was, can you make an amp that's loud enough to compete with Marco Miniman's drums on a stage, but can also be small enough that I can take it on an aeroplane as my carry-on luggage. So they made it. So now I just drag this little thing all over the world and rent a speaker cab wherever I go, and it gets the job done. And then effects, I just have a Fractal Fx8, which is just like an all-in-one digital modeler. It doesn't actually model the amp sounds or the distortion, it just does all of the pedals, like chorus and delay and wah-wah and channel switching and stuff like that. So I have one central thing on the floor where I can control all the different effects, and then the core sound comes from this little amp. And that's it. I play instrumental music for a living. I can't take any more than that on the road with me, otherwise I'd lose money. I'd be even skinnier. I guess extended range guitars have been around for longer than people realise. There were players like George Van Epps from the jazz world. Like more than half a century ago, he was doing crazy stuff with a 7-string guitar. But in terms of the way young players now think of extended range, it's a young instrument, and normally it gets used for the more progressive metal side of things. I think the whole vocabulary of extended range guitar hasn't been discovered yet. I'm really looking forward to hearing someone doing something different with it. I used it for Hans Zimmer for a very funny reason. Hans Zimmer, as a composer, as an orchestrator, he likes to have more of everything. This is a guy who once hired the 32 top double bass players in London so he could record them all in one room playing the same double bass part, because 16 double basses would not be enough for Hans Zimmer. So he's kind of Wagner with electricity. You know, those composers, Berlioz, those guys who wanted a million of every instrument, he wants more of everything. And when we started rehearsing for the tour, I just brought every weird guitar I could find, because I didn't know what my parts would be, what my role in the band would be. And as soon as he saw that it was possible to have an electric guitar with 8 strings, he just fell in love with it. He's like, that's got more strings, you have to use that. The next time I went to his studio, he'd bought a 9-string. So the war continues. I'm not a big believer in a guitar routine. For me, because I started so young at the age of 3, music was never a regimented thing. For me, learning music was the same as learning English. And I just learned by doing and by listening and by copying all the sounds I heard around me. But for any other player who's wondering, like, what should I learn, what should I practice? I think the best way to answer that question is with another question. Like, what kind of guitar player or musician are you trying to become? And I think once a student has worked that out, they'll know what to practice. I think it's really revealing just to kind of close your eyes and imagine a really awesome version of yourself playing, and it's amazing. It's like, what does it sound like, and why can't you do that now? So if you compare the way you play to the way you want to play, then you'll know what you need to work on. So I think that's different for every player. I guess there's a balance between discipline and fun. If a student wants to do this for a living and wants to take it seriously, you do have to put the hours in, you do have to work hard. It's not a soft option. And the harder you work, the better you get, and the more likely it is that you will achieve something. But on the other hand, music is all about joy, it's all about communication. It's not a sport, it's not a science, it's all about expressing yourself and having fun. So you need to find a compromise between those two things. If you can't have fun whilst working hard, maybe you should do something else for a living. The Aristocrats, it's an unusual band because we're a democracy and we kind of decide everything between ourselves. There's no leader. So we just trust that when we add 3 opinions together, we will all be happy with the results. And with every new album, we wonder, like, which way should we go? Should we be more song-orientated, or should we be more interactive and spontaneous? Should we try and capture more of a live show element on the recording, or should we keep the two very distinct? So on this album, we just did what felt right, and then when we listened back to it, some of it is very produced and arranged and very studio. Some of the most layered, produced stuff we've done, but some of it is also very loose and interactive and feels more like three guys on a stage. So it's more of both extremes. We're really happy with it. Where do new ideas come from? If we knew, we'd all be there, just filling up a big shopping bag with new ideas. I don't entirely know where it comes from. I think it's just a product of everything you ever listened to. All the music we've ever heard, possibly all the sounds in the street and what a train sounds like when it's going around, and the sound of language and all of these things. We just absorb them all, and it becomes a database of ideas and inspiration. So you absorb all that and then you don't think about it. For me, creating music is all about just becoming blank and just asking yourself, what would I like to hear right now? What kind of noises would summarize the way I feel right now? And then I try and imagine what that sounds like, and then I'll try and capture that on an instrument. I don't care about genres. I don't have the focus just to choose one style of music and say, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to combine this element of metal and this element of jazz, and that will be my style. For me, it's all music. I don't think about it too hard. And I guess I'm fortunate I'm not making pop music where you have to package things very carefully and you need to be able to describe to your audience. This is exactly what I'm giving you. For this kind of weird instrumental side of music, it's okay just to do whatever you like. And I think that's why I'm drawn to it, so I don't have to worry too hard about categories or any of that stuff. I hope that makes sense. I think everything makes a difference. Every time you're in a new musical situation, you will learn something. Maybe you will learn it from watching the other musicians. Playing with Stephen Wilson, for instance, I found I was in a band with, at one point, the guy who played drums with Frank Zappa and a guy who played keyboards with Miles Davis. And just by being around these people, you will absorb stuff. It's like, you played with my heroes, I want all of your stories. And you can learn in that sense. Or working with someone like Hans Zimmer is a very strange job for a guitar player, because if you listen to all these original scores, there's a small cash prize if you can hear any guitar. There isn't any on 90% of Hans Zimmer's famous music. Guitar is not a high-profile element. So when someone like that invites you to be in his band, you learn something about yourself. It's like, well, let's see how much I know about the instrument. Let's see how versatile my ability to communicate with guitar really is. Can I come up with something that will complement the music when it sounded fine without any guitar? So it's like learning about different sides of yourself. In the same way, if you're learning a language, it's good to have conversations with different kinds of people, and then your vocabulary becomes wider and you become more confident. It's similar to that, I think. My biggest goal, just to keep doing it. I have the best job in the world. This is what I would be doing anyway, even if I had a normal job. But I get to call this my career, and I'm basically doing whatever I want. So I guess my goal is to see how long I can get away with it, and to keep getting better, you know.